I'm Susan Carson, and among other things in life, I'm a master's student at St. Stephen's University. I also write podcasts. I'm a spiritual director, all kinds of fun things. And today I get to be here with Dr. Bradley Jersak. Welcome.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. We're gonna chat. You wear many hats as well, although you're not wearing one of your hats today. Um, Primarily principal of St. Stephen's University, professor there as well, and prolific author, theologian, speaker. We could go on. And by nature, people who follow you on social media already will know that you are a bridge builder at heart, peacemaker at heart. And so we're just going to chat about that a little bit today.
Excellent. I love this topic.
Yes. So when I say bridge builder, peacemaker, what do those things mean in your world to you, and why do they matter? Because they seem like maybe they're more important than ever.
Yeah, I think they are more important than ever, such that we're reframing how we talk about our whole school and its programs around those kind of words. So, for example, one of our newer board members, he was listening to how we talk about the school, and he said, "Here's what you are. You are you are building, bridging people." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well,
Hmm.
those who go through the school come out the other end of the program, go into the world as bridge builders. They are bridgers." And so I'm like, okay, say more. And we began to talk together about how there's different layers of bridging. And so, for example, I'm also in charge of the theology and culture program. And for those who know right now, if you watch the news almost any night, there's a horrendous lot of talk about culture wars and binaries such as left, right, progressive, conservative, more poignantly, us and them. And so the polarization that has happened in theology, in ethics, in ideology, in politics. Polarization means distance between, right? We're polar opposites in a way. And I'd even add a pun, polar, and in that it's getting colder and colder, freezing out other people and shutting them down from sharing. And so in the theology and culture program, what we're trying to do is gather people who are very diverse from across the spectrum, and we bring them into roundtable discussions where they actually get to hear the other and learn how to hold difference with respect and learn how to develop relationships with people who are much different than you without needing to indoctrinate them or convert them to your point of view. And this is just such an amazing miracle we see happen every time our students gather. And so you can have people who are quite conservative, quite progressive, meeting for the first time and finally listening. And then by the end of one of our residencies, or as they gather and travel together through their cohort, or even go traveling to Northern Ireland for our travel module, these people form very deep friendships that warm things up, so that even though they hold their convictions, now they hold their convictions with generosity of other people's convictions. And our heart is that they would now go out into the culture and function as bridge builders in that way. So that's one way, theology and culture. Another way is through the Jim Forrest Institute. That's our peace and justice program. And there, again, we're building bridges. Andrew Klager, who is our provost, and he is also the director and founder of Jim Forrest Institute. He talks about bridge, not peacemaking so much as peace building. One reason he does that is because the word peacemaker, Jesus coined it in the Beatitudes. But ever since then, people have been grabbing that, and we've actually they end up calling like peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. So what did they do? They built missiles and called them peacemakers. They built handguns and called them peacemakers. And then they talk about soldiers going to other territories, and they're peacemakers. But Andrew wanted to talk about peace builders because
Mm,
you need to get in under at the foundations. What are the things that drive people to desperation,
mm,
that drive people to hatred of the other, that drive people into warmongering? And so, if we can get down right into the foundations of what is hostile to peace itself,
mm,
and I love how he's founded that whole program on the inner transformation of a peacemaker, because we
mm,
get a lot of activists come to us and we can just see they're passionate
mm,
about making a difference in the world, but that without inner transformation, they're going to just be red-eyed and angry and probably burnt out in 5 years, right? So if we
mm,
can work from the inside out and then put people in front of them who are even not only different in ideology, but of different faiths.
mm,
So the conclusion of this semester, we're having an online peace conference
mm.
where we're partnering between St. Stephen's University and the International Islamic University in Islamabad, Pakistan for 3 days.
Wow.
6 Christians, 6 Muslims, all talking about the Jesus way of peace. I mean, it's a miracle that it's happening, but we're doing it for very practical reasons in the world. For example, the persecution of Christians in Pakistan by local blasphemy laws. And now here's where we're going to have Muslim scholars who are opposed to that,
Mm,
aligning with Christians who
mm,
want more than just Islamophobia and hate mongering.
mm, mm.
And then we do have a reconciliation studies program. I know I'm going on, but you've got to
No,
hear
it's
about this one,
great.
that with Indigenous peoples in Canada, we had a truth and reconciliation program across the nation. And parts of that didn't go well, but they did come out with a call to action,
Mm,
many calls to action. And one call to action is that institutions like ours would join hands with Indigenous people and cross a bridge together into a shared future.
mm,
And what we love to do there is bring Indigenous teachers in to train us how better to engage First Nations peoples and cultures. And just as a side note, all three of those programs also feed into a course we have in multi-faith chaplaincy, how to bring spiritual care to people who are different than you without losing yourself. And so all of those things together is what I mean by bridge building and building bridging people just like yourself.
mm. That's beautiful and incredibly unique, I think. I mean, in my limited scope of the world, the things that come together at SSU, um, I haven't seen in other places. I came into the theology and culture program really more from the theology angle because I had jettisoned a lot of theology, was trying to figure out what I was going to hold on to. And so, what I found, and I'd love for you to speak to this, is why our theology and anthropology matter in this larger conversation and formation of bridge builders.
Oh, that's so good. So let's start with something you were pointing out. We get a lot of students like you, where on the one hand, we have a good number of pastors who want to come in and upgrade their very outdated theology.
Mm,
Let's say they got their undergrad and began pastoring 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And like the world has moved on, and we better sort out what parts of the faith we need to remain anchored in the ancient and
mm,
which parts of our faith are challenged by serious advances and declines in our current culture.
mm,
So one of the things that happens is, those folks come in wanting to update their theology. There's others who are coming in like yourself where the deconstruction was so heavy that you're like, where do I come out? Do I even want to still be a believer or associated, let's say, with the Christian brand? Ugh, right?
mhm,
So my heart there is to say you need a place where you can come and ask any question you want, and you can raise all of your doubts, all of your concerns, all of your convictions, whether you're a Jesus follower or an agnostic. And so even those, we have folks coming who would say, I'm losing my faith. And I say, well, come lose it with us then. Because at least when you lose it with the confidence that you've asked the hard questions of others and of yourself. And what we're discovering is that in that kind of questioning of what we believe, and there's a new vibrancy that comes to a living kind of faith that isn't bound by a particular indoctrination, right? So um, now you raised a couple important points. One is theology, one is anthropology, and why it matters. So when we talk about theology, I'm going to boil it down this simply: what's your image of God like?
Mm.
And anthropology is, what is your image of a human? What is humanity like? And so folks who have grown up, I'll give you one example of the tradition I grew up in,
Mhm.
where the image of God was retributive or punitive, angry, needs to punish sin.
Yeah.
And if that is your image of God, it is going to affect how you see yourself and others, your anthropology. And so you might see yourself as a loathsome worm. We call it worm theology, where it's a very low view of humanity,
Yeah.
not very in touch with how beloved we are by God, and also how we see others. And so I came from a background where it was like, well, if you believe like I do, you're elect, you're righteous. And if you don't, perhaps you're not even fully human. And that's really disturbing and ugly.
Mm.
And I think what we're discovering is there's a lot of students who, in their hearts, they've moved past that, but they don't have language for it yet. And what
Mm.
we've discovered is in the early church, the very first Christians, they did have a language for this. And so we get a lot of
Yeah.
encouragement from combining classical studies with sort of uh, the cutting edge in terms of psychology or anthropology.
Mm.
And I would go so far as to say that it's a life and death matter. When we have people who feel like they are less than and that they're condemned by those who are religious authorities, or they come away from their communities with religious PTSD, their lives are in peril, particularly those who, I'll give you an example, have come out of the queer community.
Mm.
And we're a school that welcomes the LGBTQ2S unit. I know there's more letters than I can remember now, but I do know this, that each person is an individual in front of me, and they'll be treated with dignity
Yeah.
and respect
Yes.
and as fully human as anybody else. And so we found that we're a good harbor for folks like that who want to say, I think I still want to be a Jesus follower.
Mm.
And I was told I can't be. And we're saying, well, let's double check on that, because we think we have great news for you.
Yes. Yeah, it is so core to the Jesus message, right? You
Yeah.
already alluded to the Beatitudes, and blessed are the peace builders, we'll say. It's so core, and yet it's not the part of the Jesus story that we hear much or hardly ever in church, it seems, these days. So I love it when you talk about the Beatitudes. So I just love for you to take a minute and talk about what does that mean? Blessed are the peace builders.
Sure. So in Jesus' first major sermon in the New Testament, it's Matthew 5 to 7, and it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And the opening section of that sermon are what we call the Beatitudes. Blessed are they. And I find them so important that I believe we need to use them as a grid for discernment in this world. When there's a lot of fake news going on, there's a lot of gray areas going on. Where can you anchor your discernment about right and wrong, and even to rise be above the right and wrong tree in the Garden of Eden to the tree of life, right?
Mm.
And so what does flourishing look like? And it's surprising because
Mm.
the Beatitudes seem to start with kind of negative. Blessed are the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, They
Mm,
will be satisfied.
mm,
Blessed are the merciful, they'll obtain mercy.
mm,
Blessed are the pure in heart, they'll see God. Blessed are the peace builders or peacemakers, they will be called children of God.
mm,
Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of justice, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so as I install those in my heart, and I personally pray them every day because they guide me in my ethics, they guide me in my relationships, they guide me in my innermost being. And I we do a lot of teaching on this. In fact, this fall I'm teaching a course on uh, and every fall on peace and violence in the New Testament. And we look at the Beatitudes as a way where, yes, you hunger and thirst for justice, but then you need to cleanse your heart, purify your heart of malice towards perpetrators, so that then you can become peacemakers in the world instead of escalating the violence by just becoming the new perpetrator, right?
mm,
And so we're paying very close attention to what the Black church has said about that, especially Howard Thurman, Martin Luther
mm,
King Jr., and now our some of our teachers, David N. Moore from Santa Barbara, and Lisa Sharon Harper, who's now just come on with us as associate faculty. These are people who live this stuff, and I'm in a place of privilege where I could maybe unplug from it the afternoon for the after. They can't. This is their lives. This is what they live and breathe. So we're really attentive to them. And then I was mentioning the multi-faith stuff. So one of our associate faculty is a Jesus following Muslim, Safi Kaskas. We team teach the Beatitudes.
uh,
And I look at his life, and what I notice is Jesus didn't say, Blessed are the Christians, they'll be called the children of God. He said, Blessed are the peacemakers,
mm,
they will be called the children of God. And
mm,
this scrambles our categories because I know Christians who are absolutely opposed to peace, and they justify it, and they even resist the very words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. And then Safi Kaskas comes along, a Muslim, and he says, we need to be peace builders. And I said, well, you are a peace builder. I guess that makes you a child of God too. And this is very confusing to people's categories, isn't it?
yeah.
And then yeah, but he's a Muslim. And then he says, yeah, but I'm a Muslim who believes you can't be a good Muslim unless you're a follower of Jesus and know what he says. I'm like, what? He goes, yes, it's in the Quran. I translated it. And so we have these mind-blowing, expansive relationships with people who take us back to the very core of the Jesus way, of the blessed are you. So I'm glad you brought it up because it's a precious passage to our little group.
Yeah, yes. And you just use that word expansive, and I use that word a lot when I talk to people about my experience with St. Stephen's, is it just feels like things keep expanding in the most beautiful way. You alluded to some of the faculty. I mean, the voices that are coming together are just amazing. You want to talk a little more about that?
Sure. So, we have a small core faculty because that's what we can afford, but we have a massive associate faculty from all over the world, including guest lecturers, but also regular faculty members, very diverse. So, for example, um, we're we're people of different color, people of different gender, race, sex, you name it. And I know some people they'll jump on the website and they'll see the executive faculty in there, and there's a bunch of white men there. And say, well, okay, they love Jesus too, but we're very committed to including the voices of the other. So one example is our race and gender studies course that we offer every third semester, where we're going to be beginning this coming spring, and onwards from then, four faculty members. So one is David Moore, who I mentioned, a Black activist pastor from California,
Mm.
written some marvelous and provocative works. He also has a podcast called God is Not an Asshole.
Yes.
That's his podcast. And then along with him, L.A. Henry, who is a lawyer, family family lawyer, but also identifies with the LGBTQ community as a lesbian. And then we've got Stell Raven, who is an Indigenous person, also 2S trans, but also a marvelous trauma therapist.
Mm,
And then Lisa Sharon Harper, who I mentioned, who'll participate from a womanist point of view, and especially the intersectionality of women and the Black community.
mm,
So that'd be one version of the diversity of our group. But I would also say theologically, then,
mm,
so we don't require any of our core faculty, well, anybody, to sign a faith statement
mm,
because we've got people like Andrew Klager and I who lean to the Eastern Orthodox tradition, and then you've got others like Laurens van Esch from Holland, who is a Quaker, and some of our students have actually found their way into the very quiet, non-liturgical stream of Quakerism. And then you've got people of Anabaptist backgrounds, vineyard backgrounds, high and low church, and some that aren't attending a church, but they still are followers of Jesus. And what we've said to them is just like the students, we want you to share with conviction and with generosity. So they don't have to pretend they're just bland pluralists. They come with their own opinions like everyone else, which gives them the others a way to share. And a funny thing that will happen then is, let's say I'm in class in the afternoon and I'll share a conviction that I have, and they go, but Dr. Fitch said this morning. I'm like, so this is we're in grad studies. This is where you actually learn how
mm,
to hear different points of view from people who are deeply love each other and like
mm,
go on holidays together and stuff like that.
mm,
But
mm,
I think that's really, really important. And so we don't guarantee a safe space.
mm, mm,
Safe space. I believe in having the classroom be a safe place for anybody to share their convictions. But what happened with safe space promises is it became a promise that you won't have to hear other convictions. And we're
mm,
like, oh no, you're going to hear people who may actually upset you at times, and you are allowed to upset them. And so we call it a brave space. We
mm,
do maintain uh, a very strong motivation towards not shutting people down, not shutting people out or up, uh, and that we're all required to have deep respect and generosity for their points of view. But if I do that, that means I have to be willing to hear other points of view. We call that brave space.
mm.
And you know what it's like, Susan. Sometimes your heart's just pounding and you're like, do I speak up now? And what happened when you did?
Oh, I found my voice and space to really interact and get a lot more curious and grow in some really unexpected ways. It was deeply challenging, especially that first module. I know you remember.
I do. And I just watched you rise to it and you were courageous, and the students responded to that courage.
Yeah.
And and uh and I don't think anybody pounced on you or belittled your point of view. There was
No.
real attentive listening. And of course, I was monitoring that because we do. So that it's not a free for all. The faculty are trained to hold that brave space in a way that no one's going to feel crushed or canceled.
Yeah. No, it was really, really beautiful and healing in a lot of ways. The whole journey has been, and I think that's because of the faculty and the love in that space and the honoring that happens in that space.
The partying helps too.
The
We've
fun,
got this
yes.
beautiful balance now, right? Where we've got contemplative
Yeah.
reflection time throughout the week that culminates in a retreat. We've got academic time so that it's a rigorous master's degree education you're getting, and then all the way through eating meals together at the residency, and then partying in the evening, and that has a function. So we have seen people, let's say, I would say further left and further right that maybe is even healthy for them. And they begin the course and they're like, am I in the right school? Because that student said this. I'm like, yeah, but you're a student here too. Let's do this together. And then they find themselves traveling together to Northern Ireland and developing lifelong relationships and networks that of people they would have never talked to a few weeks before. It's
Hmm.
pretty fun that way, I think. I
Yeah.
get a lot of joy from seeing those relationships that transcend the expected hostilities. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I've made really deep, meaningful, and lasting friendships that feel like partners in life, right? We support each other in ministry and um yeah,
the alumni community is that, isn't it? Like there's
yeah.
people that are like, I'm not just alumni in the sense that, oh, I get an alumni letter about what the school did that I used to go to. It's like, no, this is a community that I'm in now that is a broadening network of resources emotionally and supportively, but professionally as well. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's just beautiful and a gift beyond any I could have asked or imagined. So I wonder, we're going to wrap here. Is there an invitation you would want to offer people, and how do people find out more? How do they connect? How do they ask questions?
Sure. I would encourage people just to go click around our website at ssu.ca. Do it slowly enough to see the good, cool video footage of what's happening behind the scenes or when we're out in the world and so on. And then you can apply in 5 minutes without an obligation just to find out more. But also, I want to say a few things in terms of invitation. You can start with one class just to test the waters. You could start with a couple of classes, and you don't have to come out to St. Stephen. You can do it all online. You could, if you're a mature student, meaning let's say you haven't even taken undergrad courses before and you're not sure you can, like you can. And we have Marisa Lepesh is just an amazing tutor who helps people when they need it. And so we're telling people who feel rusty or new to studying, um, come do like a 1 year certificate. And at the end of that, if it feels like it's a good fit, you can take all of those credits and put them towards a master's degree. And if not, you still have a 1 year certificate. This is for your resume, right? And so and then the other thing is, I've mentioned what a residency is like, but really that's just 1 week a semester. The rest of the time, you have a cohort that meets through recordings and Zoom meetings throughout the semester. And so we designed it for busy people who have lives, jobs, and families who can't move and who don't want to do this full time and who want to play it out. And I would say half our students take their time and go at their own pace. But once they come to a residency, they're really hooked on meeting in person too. So we do encourage at least to begin with a week of that as well. So check it out, and then if you have any questions, they can email us at info@ssu.ca. And by the time people are seeing this video, I will have finished and put on our website a frequently asked questions page of, I think there's 27 questions
Wow.
that we answer there in full, and they'll be able to look at that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for leading. And I know you're surrounded by just a community of amazing people carrying this work forward in the world. So thank you so much for creating this brave space
My
for all of
pleasure.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for spending a few minutes with us today learning about St. Stephen's University. We bless you to be a peace builder.
Come join us.